Welcome to the Jim Acosta Show, and it's another day that ends in Y in Donald Trump's assault on American democracy. We have entered a new era of snowflake fascism, ladies and gentlemen, in the U.S., where the snowflakes on the far right whine and complain every time somebody hurts their feelings, and the weak-kneed corporate executives who only know how to smooch Trump's butt simply go along with the dear leader's demands. The latest example, the canceling of Jimmy Kimmel's late-night TV show. All Kimmel did was call out MAGA for attempting to capitalize on the death of Charlie Kirk, which, of course, they did. My first guest this hour is MSNBC anchor Ali Velshi, who anchors his Velshi program on the weekends. Ali, pretty extraordinary 24 hours, disturbing 24 hours in network television and American news media. What's your sense of all this? And I mean, I think you approach this from a business standpoint, too, business news standpoint, too. We were talking about this before we got going. I don't remember a time like this in our industry.
No, and the business part of it is important to understand because when you look at broadcast news and broadcast networks, you know, most people probably know this from the areas they live in. The network doesn't own the local station. The local station wants to either survive or is part of a group that wants to merge with someone else. So this is sort of asymmetric pressure that the government is putting on both local stations and networks to either threaten that they're going to lose their licenses or that the local affiliates will threaten to not carry certain shows. So it achieves this remarkable end, right? It's just one short of actually the government going in and canceling things themselves. There are two parts of the First Amendment. This breaches both of it. The First Amendment mentions freedom of the press. And if you don't think Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert are members of the press, it also protects free speech for everyone else in the country. Like the First Amendment goes out of its way to specifically say press, religion, the gathering of people in protest and people. So this is a really complex set of things that are going on, except for the fact, Jim, that they wrote it all down in Project 2025. And the part about media that was written by Brendan Carr, who is now the chair of the FCC. So on one hand, unprecedented. On the other hand, they said they were going to do it. Not a lot of people read that 922-page, hard-to-read tome. But like so much else of what's going on, it was written down. They said they're going to do it, and now they're doing it.
Yeah, and Ali, I mean, you and I have been in this business for a while. I don't recall an FCC coming down like this ever.
No.
The way we've seen things go the last several months, and so it is intentional. It's right out of Project 2025, and Brendan Carr is acting like essentially Trump's media henchman.
Yep.
But I want to get to Carr in a moment, but let's at least play what Jimmy Kimmel said and talk about it on the other side, because I think this has been twisted around by the far right, and then just ABC and the stations responded to it.
Yep.
New lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, Ali, I don't know what your take is on it. I said this last week that there was a rush on the part of people in MAGA to basically pigeonhole the murderer as somebody who was trans or from the left and so on. I mean, it was before the facts even came in. I think that's what Kimmel was saying there. And then, I mean, we should also note on social media, he was saying that this is wrong what happened to Charlie Kirk.
He called it the murder of Charlie Kirk, right?
Yes.
We're very clear about murder. We're very clear about the fact that whether you agree with people or not, nobody needs to be killed in this country. In fact, you and I would probably agree that with all the people who say this is not who we are, I wonder whether this is actually who we are, because there are a lot of attempted assassinations in the United States. That said, you can wholly condemn them. You can even wholly condemn Jimmy Kimmel if you want to, except that we live in America. So your choices are not to watch him, not to carry him, make a business decision about him. The idea that Donald Trump and Brendan Carr and others have the degree of influence they have over what seem to be business decisions having to do with our First Amendment rights, which go back a long way, by the way. I remind people, John Adams defended the British in court.
Right.
Benjamin Franklin wrote Poor Richard's Almanac, which was it was satire, right? This is actually who we're supposed to be based on our Constitution. You can say things that others can find disagreeable, and the government cannot impose its will upon you. People can. The free market can. You can have no friends. Your family can leave you. But the fact is, the government, the First Amendment is your protection from the government's overreach. And now we've got an FCC chair who's doing Donald Trump's bidding as the FCC chair. So you're doing the government's bidding in that job through threats and innuendo. It'd be one thing if there were hearings and there were arguments made as to why this merger shouldn't take place. That's not what the FCC is doing. They're just operating as the censor board.
Yeah. And Donald Trump is the snowflake in chief. He cannot take a joke. I mean, he was complaining to reporters on Air Force One as he was leaving the UK. And he was making, and I have some of the comments here. He says, I read someplace that the networks were 97% against me, again, 97% negative, and yet I won and easily won all 7 swing states, blah, 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 blah. He goes on to say, that's something that should be talked about for licensing too. When you have a network, you have evening shows, all they do is hit Trump, all they do. He says they're licensed. They're not allowed to do that. He actually said that they're not allowed to do that. He goes,
not true.
They're an arm of the Democratic Party. They are allowed to do that.
Yes.
And Ali, I mean, we're both students of this craft, of this business. I mean, Jay Leno used to go after Bill Clinton every night on the Tonight Show over Monica Lewinsky. My God, this is something that's happened to presidents from both parties for decades.
Yes. And you should love it and kiss your TV screen every night that our law permits it. You may find none of this funny. You may find it inappropriate. You may find it politically distinct. All of those things are what you must love about the protections we have in this country. Because if you don't do that, you become another type of country. You become another type of society that we decided through revolution we do not wish to be. I mean, this is the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Can you imagine that this was top of mind for these guys 250 years ago?
Thank goodness.
That important. So the decision here is not to like it, not to endorse it, not to support it, not to like Jimmy Kimmel, not to agree with Jimmy Kimmel, whatever. None of this matters. It's all besides the point. It's that they have a right to do it. And as the president of the United States, your job, if you're adhering to the Constitution, is to make sure that you agree they have a right to do it. Distasteful though it is. I don't know why anybody watches this guy. It's not interesting, but it is his right.
It is his right. And, we were just talking about Brendan Carr earlier, who was one of the architects of Project 2025. He's the FCC chairman, and he was on this podcast. I mean, what he's doing on a podcast with Benny Johnson, who is one of the ridiculous people of the far right. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. I mean, it is beyond me, but he gives away the game here in this clip I want to show, because he basically admits this is what they're doing inside the Trump administration. They're pressuring the stations, they're pressuring the networks to get rid of critics. Let's watch.
Frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt. We are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we licensed broadcaster, are running the possibility of fines or license revocation from the FCC if we continue to run content that ends up being a pattern of news distortion. So I think, again, Disney needs to see some change here, but the individual licensed stations that are taking their content, it's time for them to step up and say, this, garbage, to the extent that that's what comes down the pipe in the future, isn't something that we think serves the needs of our local communities. But this sort of status quo is obviously not acceptable where we are.
Yeah, Ali, he is telling ABC what to do there.
And he's telling the potential claimants, the independently owned stations, what to do. And he's warning them that if you don't sort of take my suggestion, then your needs to merge, because the two of the biggest holders of stations are trying to merge. So he's warning them that decision will come before me. And if you don't take up my suggestion, you'll remember before ABC decided to, whatever language they're using with Jimmy Kimmel, preempting him indefinitely, it was one of the local station groups that says, we are not going to carry this. Literally, Brendan Carr's words being carried out. So keep this in mind. Maybe you liked the logo change at Cracker Barrel, or you didn't. And the president didn't, and he chimed in on that. But the president has nothing to do, the federal government has nothing to do with licensing Cracker Barrel. So that's just a commercial decision. Cracker Barrel can decide, we don't want to have the MAGA hatred, so we'll keep our logo the way, whatever. This is not Brendan Carr yakking about this on a podcast. He actually is in charge of whether these people get their mergers or keep their licenses or don't. So that's not just some guy chewing the fat. That's the guy who's in charge of whether you get to do business on an ongoing basis, basically telling you this is how it's going to unfold.
Yeah. And I mean, Brendan Carr almost sounds like, like he's part of the mob or something.
Right. That's totally, it's an insinuated threat. Not even that insinuated. He just kind of said it.
Nice network you got there.
Pretty clearly. Nice
network you got there. Be shame if something happened to it. That kind of stuff. I mean, and
look, the chilling effect beyond that is what becomes the problem, because in this moment, bold journalists and satirists and political commentators need to be their boldest, right? People forget that while you're a famous podcaster and you've got this great newsletter and I'm on your show, you and I knew each other back in the day. We overlapped at CNN, and you were bold then and you got heat for it then, but generally speaking, you were pretty sure you weren't going to lose your job over the fact that you were holding power to account, because that's actually our job description.
Yeah.
Now you've softened that. Now all of us have to think 2 and 3 times, not just about whether our employers will back us up, but will they come for us? What does they mean? An audit or whatever it is the government can use against you? Will they bring the might of the government against you for holding power to account, whether you be a lawyer, a prosecutor, a judge, a journalist, a satirist, a political opponent? That's the chill that starts to set in, that is very dangerous for democracy and very hard to recover from.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, Ali. And my producer, Matt, was putting up on screen the chyron that says, Kimmel canceled, but Brian Kilmeade is at Fox. The one exception to all this is you basically, if you're on Fox, you can say anything that you want. Brian Kilmeade the other day was saying
homeless people.
Just talking about killing homeless people.
It wasn't a thesis about, hey, this would be an interesting way to solve this. Literally just laid out there, we can give them injections.
Incredible.
To kill homeless people. I mean, what a thing. And I'm Jim, I got to tell you, I'm one of these guys who thinks everybody deserves a chance to explain themselves and apologize, and he did, and move on. But nobody else seems to get that privilege, right?
No.
He did say something outrageous.
I
don't know what was going through Kilmeade's mind when he said that. I'm glad that he apologized. It was a terrible thing to say. But again, prepared to say, you know what, you talk for a living, you might make some mistakes from time to time. True. This is not mistakes. We're not punishing people for mistakes. We're punishing people for their views and their expression of those views, which, again, as an immigrant to this country, as a person whose parents grew up in apartheid South Africa, where they could lock you in jail without any charge, this all seems very spooky to me.
Yeah, and I will tell people, as the son of a Cuban immigrant, I've been to Cuba a few times. Watch state television coming out of Cuba and see what that looks like. I remember when Fidel Castro died, and I was down there after his death, and the media at the time was referring to his death as the physical disappearance of Fidel Castro.
Right.
Do we want a situation in this country where we get so bananas like North Korean state television, North Korean state media, that we can't even call him like we see him anymore? It's like George Orwell 1984 shit. It's just
Iran
nuts.
Or Hungary's going in that direction. Yes. And here's the interesting part of this. Brendan Carr said in that clip you ran that, our stations have to say, we don't want this garbage. It's not in the interests of our local community. Your example is perfect. It's actually in the interests of your local community to have lots of information out there and have people be allowed to change the channel on their remote and be able to triangulate and figure out what's true and what's not true. Because if they're telling you that Castro's death is just his physical absence, you need to be able to hear somebody who thinks otherwise and be able to use your brain to be a critical thinker. When you take out flow of information, you reduce the ability to be critical thinker. So it is actually in your interest as a local news consumer to not have the government making determinations as to what your news will tell you.
Yes, and what Donald Trump hates about the media, what he hates about us, is that we point out his bullshit and his lies all the time. This is what he said about Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, to that point, this is what he said about Jimmy Kimmel.
Vice President Vance said that free speech is under attack in the UK. Do you agree with him? And Prime Minister, we saw the dismissal of a very well-known chat show host in America last night, Mr. Kimmel. Is free speech more under attack in Britain or America?
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
I mean, Ali, I think it's very clear that he was fired because of pressure from the Trump administration. Donald Trump has been complaining about Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert for months
Yep.
now. As a matter of fact, he put out a Truth Social post saying that he wants Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers to go next. So he's going down his list. I think it's pretty clear what's happening with the administration. They've got their hit list. These are the people they want to knock off the air. And he's working his way down that list.
Right. And by the way, there are only a few of these network level satirists and comedians. Right after that,
Right.
we're like, this doesn't end. We've seen this in history. It doesn't end with just a handful of people or a few people or a couple judges or a couple prosecutors. It just doesn't end. So that's number one. Number two, the president also has First Amendment protections and is able, has the right to say that he doesn't think Jimmy Kimmel's funny and he's bad and comment on his ratings. Any of us in the broadcast or cable industry fully understand we've got challenges with ratings. They're business challenges. We're in a declining, industry. All of that can be true. It's that line between the government willing something to happen, it happening, and the rest of us buying the excuse for why it happened, right? If you want to just accept the fact that Kimmel and Colbert might ultimately are canceled because for business reasons, fine. It would be better if you knew the full story and you were able to say, hey, I don't agree with that. I might not like these guys, but I really don't want my government getting involved. And you know this, Jim, because you've covered a lot of administrations, as have I. No administration has ever not called to complain about.
They always complain.
In this country and every other country, by the way, that I cover. They all call to complain, and that's okay. I will take the complaint. There are times that I've gone to the White House to have a conversation because they've complained so much. I've said, let's go through the books together. Let's compare the stories.
Yeah.
And we're all smarter for doing that, for that level of engagement. But you don't get to tell me as a journalist what I can and cannot say, despite how distasteful what I can and cannot say actually is. Once we agree that that's okay, and your immigrant parents and my immigrant parents understand this, right? That if you're close enough to where things were really bad, you understand what you're giving up. My fear is that we're too far away from it in America for people to realize it's death by 1,000 cuts. Democracy doesn't just disappear one night. Your vote doesn't just go away.
Right.
It's this.
It's being chipped away little by little. And I mean, to the point about Trump complaining about, I mean, he complained about me to the point where they took my press pass away, and they continue to complain about me until, well, now I'm here. But Ali, the thing is that one of the reasons why we have to have a constitutional right to free speech and freedom of the press is so we can call out the president's lies. Right. When Trump earlier today in the UK, he was saying that the US is taking in trillions of dollars in tariffs. He also said inflation is virtually non-existent right now, and we're taking in trillions of dollars of tariffs. I looked this up. Yahoo Finance says, according to the U.S. Treasury, total tariff collections during 2025 so far, this is up to about September, have amounted to $142 billion.
Right.
Now, they may get a couple of trillion over 10 years or something like that, right? But not trillions.
Right. And by the way, just keep in mind, they're taking that money in. Your prices are also getting higher. So, it's not like, hey, if my government took in $1 trillion and then I got a $1 trillion, we got a rebate that was distributed to Americans. You're not getting like a windfall from it. Yeah. In fact, inflation's at 2.9%. Inflation is pushing up. Now we got these interest rate cuts, which the president wanted. Interestingly enough, he puts his guy in the empty seat on the Fed, and the vote to reduce interest rates by 1/4 of a percentage point was 11-1. His one guy wanted it to be a bigger cut. So he can I guess he can ultimately control the Fed too, but he's got to actually put 5 more people in, 6 more people in before he can do it.
And he's trying to control the Fed. He's going to the Supreme Court now to get rid of Lisa Cook.
Yeah, on the basis of something that misconduct. Most people interpret misconduct at the Fed to be something you did on the job, as opposed to a mortgage application from beforehand. Lots of questions about whether there's any. She hasn't been charged with anything. Just to be clear, anything, right?
Anything
charged, but not adjudicated. There still wouldn't be a case because you're presumed innocent until you're found guilty in America. She's been charged, hasn't been charged, hasn't been adjudicated, and he's asking the Supreme Court for the right to fire her. And you know what, Jim? They might give it to him. That's a moment about which we should all worry, because that also goes back to the Founding Fathers and why the Federal Reserve is an independent, protected body, the sort of which the entire world has modeled their central banks around.
Yeah. And a viewer just very sharply pointed out that Trump has also been saying that drug prices are going down by like 1,000%. He just makes, this is the thing. And this is why
100% would make them free.
Yeah.
1,000% would be
means they would
you
send us
go
a
to the
check.
pharmacy and they give you cash with your drugs.
And this is why we need Jimmy Kimmel. This is why we need Stephen Colbert, because his lies are so ridiculous. They are crying out for mockery.
Yes, and satire has, for all of our history, all over the world, for all of global history, been a thing that has been very effective for political accountability. Right?
Yeah.
What's your whole thing? Jim Acosta holds people accountable. That's your entire story of your later journalistic life.
I also have a dog.
That's what we do. You don't have to like us for it.
That's
you
right.
don't have to approve of it. And if enough people don't like me about it, I'll get the message. But it can't be the government involved in that. That's
right. That's exactly right. Now, I'm MSNBC is going to be mad at me. Speaking of networks, if I don't mention that you and the other fine folks there have a live town hall coming up, a live event coming up. It's been a cool event in the years past.
Yes.
This is going to be even bigger and better, and you got more people.
We're doing this October 11th, the Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan. It's going to be all of us. And I would say the best part about it, we did in Brooklyn last year, is that in these tough times, and we are much more confused and we're struggling a lot more this year than we even were at this time last year. The coming together thing, the community thing does help.
It does.
We can't be mad all the time, right? Even though we're really fighting for democracy, we need camaraderie. We need to talk to people. And so this will be a great, we're talking about democracy, obviously, because that's the main issue, but it's this great opportunity because people trust us, Jim, as you know, and we owe them a debt. If you trust us, then we owe you a debt to talk to you and to help you roadmap your way out of this thing. So I'm actually pretty excited about it. Normally the news gets me down these days. I gotta be fair, but this idea that we're going to be talking to people, real people out there living their lives is really good. And
I find it to be very healthy. I find it to be, I've had a couple of town halls with this experience I'm doing now. I'm in Dallas for a separate event this evening where I'll be talking to some folks, and it gives you a lot to think about, honestly. And we can't just be in these little studios, or in my case, a hotel room or living room, and not have that kind of connection. So
we're all in our bubbles, and for those people who criticize the media for being in a bubble, they're not wrong. I mean, the circles we run in can be a little limiting. So if we don't get out there and talk to people and meet them where they are, we will also get the message wrong. So I never don't feel energized when I'm out with a crowd of people who live out in the real world, do watch us, and often have very good criticisms about how we can do a better job.
No, it's so true. And to your point earlier about just go around the world and look at totalitarian governments and what happens with the media there. Another person who has some thoughts on this subject is the great Garry Kasparov. I can bring him in while you're with us, Ali.
My old neighbor, Garry.
Yes.
Always a pleasure. Garry and I have had this conversation many times. And just like I said to Jim, Garry, for many Americans, the concept of not having democracy is too far in the past for some people to feel as alarmed by it as they do. But that's the beauty of you being on here. So I'm going to hand it over to you because it's not too distant for you.
I can only add, Ali, that Trump administration is doing a great job to make me feel home.
There you go.
Garry, like Mother
great
Russia.
to see you, my friend. Thank you. Jim, great to see you as well.
Good to see you, Ali. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Great stuff. Talk to you soon. Garry, great to see you, sir. And if we don't laugh, we'll cry. I guess that's the whole part of this. And I guess that does tie back to Jimmy Kimmel. And Garry, I mean, of course, everybody knows you as the great chess master and pro-democracy advocate, but you're also very active on social media. And one of the posts that I really we have to talk about before we get this thing going, you pointed out that one of the very first things that Vladimir Putin did was get rid of a puppet show that was mocking him. Do I have that correct?
Instantly. He did two things. One is he reinstated Soviet anthem just to show his aspirations about future restoration of Russian Soviet Empire. And he killed Kukli, the dolls. That was a great show. I
remember it was like a Russian Muppet
attacked
show.
Yeltsin so vehemently. I mean, they're making just jokes about Yeltsin and Yeltsin administration. Nothing happened. The first thing Putin did, poof, dead. So it's the beginning. I mean, naturally, America today is not Russia in 2000. Yeah. So yes, there's 250 years of traditions, Declaration of Independence, and before that also the respect for the rule of law. Russia didn't have these traditions, but it's a playbook. So I just on my Substack, The Next Move, I just published a couple of hours in an article. I saw how Russia killed media freedom. Because if you do nothing, It will happen. And I think a lot of people here, they still have some kind of a belief, oh, we have constitution. It's ironclad. No, constitution is a piece of paper. It's as good as you're willing to use the provisions of the constitution to fight for your rights. Yes. And to me, that it's again, I wouldn't call it a panic, but it's the forces of democracy are in disarray.
Well, and as we've seen from the Supreme Court, they're willing to give Trump a blank check. And
yes,
so,
but but you have to fight. Look, this is if you don't fight, they'll grab more and more space.
That's right.
Yeah, it's Trump doesn't have just a massive majority in the House or in the Senate, but he's just he's terrorizing people. It's a mob behavior, and they getting more and more emboldened because of the weakness. Weakness, appeasement is the way to make the other side stronger. Yeah, and
so when you see ABC, when you see these networks kowtowing, it's the exact wrong thing to do.
It's not them. You saw the law firms, you saw universities. Again, it's step by step. This is as Ali said, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It doesn't happen overnight. I warned Americans in one of my articles. It's a series of 3 now. The third one is coming out, called "The Putin'ization of America." That dictatorship doesn't appear overnight. It's very rare you have tanks on the streets. It's a slow process, a process of slow death. So this is one law, another one, maybe here, comma, here, just it's a full stop, this paragraph being removed. It's slow process. Actually, Trump is moving much faster. And I think the real danger is
he's moving faster than Putin.
Yeah, it's actually faster than Putin because he has to manage to control more levels of power before 2026 elections. In my next article, which is being released soon in The Atlantic, I'm saying that the 2026 elections is in grave danger. It will be free, but most likely not fair. Trump can't afford to lose the House. And also we know Trump doesn't lose elections. Trump doesn't accept bad numbers.
He was saying that today. He was saying again that he won the 2020 election.
He has his own numbers. And nobody around him corrects him. You remember he once said, I ended 7 wars or 6 wars, how many wars?
He said it again today, 7 wars. Yeah.
Was a conflict between Albania and Azerbaijan, not Armenia, Albania. So he said it once, and he said it twice. Actually, in Britain, he said it 3 times, which means no one around him dares to say, Mr. President, what? This is actually Armenia. No. The numbers that Trump declares, announces, those are the real numbers. And we remember on January 6th, he tried to overturn the results of the election, but he didn't have control at the time. Now he will have everything, not just the hoodlum on the streets or just the rubble or just mob. He will have FBI, DOJ, ICE, and if people think that it never happened here, that's not an argument. Never happened here. Just you should forget about it. With Trump, everything happens first time, and anything that is not codified, sometimes even if it's codified, Trump will try to overrun and ask the question. Will Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and alike will follow Trump orders or constitutional provisions? We saw Kash Patel on the floor at the hearings, insulting sitting senators. I mean, calling the sitting senator a disgrace and buffoon. That what does it tell you? It's audience of one. He doesn't care about Senate. He's talking to one man, the boss. He wants to.
It's the audience of one.
Be happy because that's how he protects his job, and that tells you that the balance of power already shifted. So the Senate is totally paralyzed as the House, and more and more power is being concentrated in the hands of the executive. And what's happened yesterday? It's a clear illustration that they are not going to stop short of eliminating any sign of opposition prior to 2026 elections.
Yeah.
And the numbers are looking bad. More and more people are shifting sides. We hear people say, I regret it, I voted for Trump, which means they will need even more pressure.
Yes. That's exactly why, Garry, he's talking about getting rid of mail-in balloting. That's exactly why he wants to redraw the congressional maps. He sees the polling data, and they told him he's even going south on immigration, which is supposed to be his bread and butter issue. So he knows what's coming down the pike, and he's trying to stop it before it happens. And I totally agree with you.
That's why I believe the Democrats must fight. Yes, I understand the consequences of government shutdown. But this state has been used against us, against Americans. It's against democracy. And Donald Trump is not shy to privatize state institutions, state symbols like the flag, to promote his agenda.
Yes.
And he does it all the time.
And Garry, what took place in the former Soviet Union, the early days of Russia, the Russian Federation coming back, that paved the way for Putin to do this? Were people complacent? Did people just think, oh, it won't happen now that we have freedom? There's no way we're going to go. What was it that allowed that to occur?
Look, Russia didn't have the same traditions, and we had a few years of proper democracy. But then there was a conflict between Yeltsin and the parliament, and the parliament was not, a collection of good guys, nationalists, communists, but it was a balance of power. Yeltsin won this short episode of civil war, basically shooting at the parliament, tanks.
Right, right.
I have to confess, I was on the Yeltsin side. In 1996, we had elections, free, not fair. I was also on the Yeltsin side because we were afraid communists, they could come back. It doesn't work this way. It's anytime you make compromise with principles, it will bite you, sooner or later. And in Russia, I think they paved the way for Putin.
And that's probably why, you're saying the Democrats need to fight. That is probably why they would be well advised to not take any deal with the Republicans that involve all of the nutty shit that Trump has been doing with ICE and everything else. To me, it's like, why not shut it down? See what he does. Dare him.
Yeah, exactly. Because he uses his even tiny majority to push his agenda. He said, not me, not you. He said, forget Democrats, no deals. I don't need you. Trump de facto, not the euro yet, de facto running one party government. It's one party rule. The rest doesn't matter. The only moment he needs Democrats is to avoid a shutdown. Don't give them this chance. Fight back. It's risky.
Let them own it.
It will, but you can't win a battle against this kind of juggernaut without taking risk. And a problem with both Schumer and Jeffries. They want to do business as usual. It's not business as usual. It's not about healthcare. It's not about tariffs. This is about the future of American democracy, because Trump is aiming at the very heart of American political system, the checks and balances.
And the Jimmy Kimmel story is important in all of this. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, but the way Putin was able to take over the media in Russia, and it's starting to look very similar to what is taking place now in the U.S. I've never seen anything like it.
No, by the way, it's interesting that is the arguments they use. As I said, it resonates because that's what Putin told Bush 43. No, don't worry. This is about business. What they did, they put pressure on business and they closed the show.
Exactly. Same
story. It says, again, Russia didn't have the same strengths of opposition, not the same strengths of the laws, and not the same public that was willing to fight. I think it's very important to lead people. They should recognize that we're in majority. We can fight. And we have there are many tools. The problem is you don't use these tools. You don't use the levers of power that's still available. They'll become irrelevant.
Yeah.
And this is for instance, people asking, I'm reading now, what can we do? Stop writing on social media. Write to your representatives, especially the Republicans, and turn their lives to hell.
I think you're right. I think you're onto something.
Keep pushing. Send emails. Just create the momentum. They said Jimmy Kimmel had poor ratings. Let's see. Maybe there are a few millions.
Yeah.
Write to them. So
and you're absolutely right, Garry, because look what happened with the Epstein files. The Republicans were going to just get behind Trump and not do anything.
Remember, you need five members of the House. 5.
Yeah.
3 of them already retiring. It's Bacon, McCall, and Massey. Maybe you need 2 more. Just find them, and put pressure. They're also
That's right.
They're terrorized by Trump. Terrorize them in a good sense. Put pressure. Talk about democracy. So create momentum for them to decide, we can't tolerate anymore. You see, it's
MAGA's been tormenting all of us. It's time to,
everybody's willing to accept things. You read the comments. Yes, they feel uncomfortable. Yes. I find it very troubling that a lot of people are defending this administration and on this decision. And I think it's very important to point out that the whole conversation about Jimmy Kimmel and Charlie Kirk is basically irrelevant. Yeah. And I looked just to 2 landmark cases of Supreme Court. I'm surprised that nobody mentioned the very famous case. Actually, I learned about it from the movie People versus Larry Flynt.
That's right.
It's a 1988 case. So it's a Hustler magazine versus a Faldo. And Falwell was, again, I think was a much bigger Christian preacher than Charlie Kirk. And the case was about just to say, the defamation, emotional distress. And they clearly said that libel, invasion of privacy, and emotional distress are not arguments against First Amendment. And the decision was 8-0.
That's right.
And it was a conservative court, Rehnquist court. It was a conservative court that basically said it, bluntly.
Yes. And Gary, this is why that is such the perfect. This is why that I think that the networks have really let us down. When ABC and CBS paid those settlements to Trump, $16 million, they only emboldened the behavior. And I think if these cases were to go all the way to the Supreme Court, I think that you would have similar protections for freedom of speech. I mean, the Supreme Court obviously is very pro MAGA, but I don't know. And maybe I'm being Pollyannish here. I just refuse to believe they're going to throw the First Amendment overboard, just because Trump doesn't like his coverage.
But you talk about this Supreme Court. Just one more thing.
Yeah.
Last year, you remember the case last year? It was an NRA versus New York, city of New York. Yeah, I'm just reading the Supreme Court. Yep. They decided in favor because the NRA complained that New York regulator used his power to force organizations to cut ties with them. And this, again, 9-0. And it said very, very clearly that this is the the court reaffirms that government officials cannot attempt to coerce private parties in order to punish or suppress views that the government disfavors. That's the Supreme Court. This Supreme Court. Yes. 9-0. Just read the decision. It's just fine. So it's all we need is just to start pushing. All these things. All these elements. That are, in my view, are very important. Yeah.
Well, and Charlie Kirk himself said, and there's a lot of stuff that Charlie Kirk has said that I don't agree with, I don't like. I think some of what he said is repugnant, but he did say there is no such thing legally as hate speech.
Absolutely. It's, by the way, that was a united position of MAGA. That was one of the things on the banner of Trump bans, defending free speech and, of course, releasing Epstein files. So Epstein files, something got wrong there, and now the free speech. The same people, that talked about the free speech, and the first thing Trump said at the inauguration, executive order. By the way, what is this executive order? Defending free speech, the views of those I disagree with. So it's, again, there's a logic of building authoritarian state, and they have no choice. They need to eliminate all the dissent voices, especially as powerful as Jimmy Kimmel. And they will push as far as they can. It's like, classical, this is the bayonet against mush, and it will be pushed inside until it meets steel.
Yeah.
So our steel is numbers. So people have to go to the streets as well, but it's very important to start writing, use social media, again, putting pressure on those who can, end Trump's rule. I repeat again, 5 Republicans changing sides. If it happens, that's it. But the House is not, it's Article 1 of the Constitution.
Well, and I think, the comparison with Putin is such a good one. I worry that Americans are just going to say, oh, that's never going to happen here. That's not going to happen here. But look what has happened over 2 decades of Vladimir Putin and his rule in Russia, and what happened to Alexei Navalny.
You forget Russia for a moment. What's happened here in 8 months? It is this look, this is so many things that people said, no, it's inconceivable.
The National Guard and major American cities.
Yeah. Just Trump is call it. He's a genius of normalizing things that were not acceptable. I mean, today nobody would even notice Watergate. What is Watergate? It happens every day. It's maybe every hour. So Trump normalized things that many Americans deemed to be impossible. And
he's worn down our outrage sensors.
So Constitution does not defend itself. We just have to start building our fortification based on the foundation of the Constitution.
And that's why, the No Kings protest that we saw back in June was so important. I think this next one on October 18th is going to be very important for not just for people to see.
We narrow the angle. It's the opposition against Trump can be easily disunited, and they're very good at doing that. There are many issues that can divide us. What we should defend is a framework that will allow us to disagree. The greatest of America was always that it was enough room for people with different views to live in one country and follow the same rules.
Yeah.
So protecting this framework is the key, and that's why I founded Renew Democracy Initiative back in 2017. That's what I'm writing on in the next move on my Substack. It's about us recognizing there's a number one target now. For instance, I'm doing the podcast now on the Atlantic, so I talk to America, and I invited Jake Sullivan. I've been one of the harshest critics of Jake. And we talked. I said, Jake, fine, I will criticize you, but now we should talk about the real threat. And he said, yes, the real threat is from within.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we put aside some of the differences, because they are important, but not as important as saving American Constitution, American democracy from an existential threat.
And Garry, while I've got you, your thoughts also on the way Trump has if there's one person that Trump kowtows to, it's Vladimir Putin. They had that ridiculous summit in Alaska. There are Russian drones going into Poland. Trump was asked about it today. He said, "Oh, I'm disappointed." He sounded like Susan Collins. "I'm very disappointed." That doesn't cut it.
Actually, I'm sorry. It's this. I saw this. It's my X account is Kasparov 63.
Yeah.
So just to make sure it's not that Garry Kasparov.
Okay. We'll get that right.
Kasparov 63. I'm not sure who's using Garry Kasparov. Kasparov 63. Yes. Yeah.
Kasparov 63 is the correct account.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just.
I think we might have been showing your Substack.
Substack, yes, but yes, this is true. Yes, but so. But again, I'm telling you, we still have many opportunities to fight back. The tools are there.
Yeah.
I think the mood is right, but it's very important not to panic. And also, not to be subdued by these bullies, because what we saw, just as the attack on the FCC, it's his bullying. It's a mob language. You have such a nice business.
It's the MAGA mafia.
Be aware I can kill it.
That's right.
You have to go to the court. I'm not here to give advance to Kimmel or others, but basically it's criminal. What he said is criminal.
Yes. Well, Garry Kasparov, and there it is right there, Kasparov 60.
Yes,
the Democrats would be wise to follow your chess moves. I think you've got the right ones here.
The rule is one thing in chess. If your position is not good, you have to complicate things, because you have to just change the course of the game to make it more sharper and to increase the chances of opponent making mistake.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Garry. Really appreciate it. Good to see you as always.
Thank you.
Thank you. The great Garry Kasparov. And, folks, the reason why I thought it was important to have Garry on is Garry speaks on this subject of this creeping fascism, this creeping authoritarianism here in the United States with some authority. He speaks on this with some authority because he can draw upon the lessons of what happened to the former Soviet Union, which showed great promise that it might have become a strong democracy. And instead, Vladimir Putin comes on the scene. It backslides tragically to the point where now it's a police state. It's a violent police state. And what are we seeing in America right now? Seeing Donald Trump sending National Guard troops into major American cities. He's already done it to 2. He's threatening to do it more. He is going after the media in ways that we have not seen in my lifetime. 2 late night hosts kicked off of their shows, 2 networks paying essentially bribes to the president of the United States. So much so he was bragging about it to John Carl the other day. He was bragging about how ABC, John's employer, paid him $16 million. And he didn't even couch it by saying they paid it to my library. He said they paid it to me. And you can get red in the face, pissed off at Donald Trump until the cows come home. There has to be some culpability. There has to be some responsibility. There has to be some sense of decency and patriotism on the parts of these networks, on the parts of these major institutions in American society that continue to bend the knee, that continue to kowtow to Donald Trump, this wannabe dictator, this Putin wannabe. At some point, these major institutions have to take a stand. And for the life of me, why ABC buckled in this case is everything about money. My God, Walt Disney, they print money out of the goddamn Magic Kingdom, printing money daily. They need more money. It matters that much. Some things are more important than money. Taking a stand for the First Amendment, taking a stand for free speech, that's more important. And I'm sorry, these stations A lot of these stations, folks, do your homework on this. Do some searching on the Google or ChatGPT on this, and find out the people who own some of these major media companies these days. Sinclair, the people who are about to take over CBS, the Ellisons, and might buy another cable network that I have some familiarity with. They're MAGA. They're Trumpy. Folks need to see what's happening right now, the consolidation of American media institutions under the umbrella, under the wing of Donald Trump and MAGA. Folks, that is a scenario we must push back against with all of our might. You cannot have a situation in this country where you have, for all intents and purposes, American state media, Trump state media. We know what they have over at Fox. I mean, over at Fox, there's no accountability there. Brian Kilmeade talked about this on the show the other day. I'll talk about it again. Goes on television and says you can lethally inject homeless people. That's his suggestion, to lethally inject homeless people, euthanize and execute homeless people. Apologizes. Apparently, it looks like he was forced to apologize. Keeps his job. Jimmy Kimmel makes one fact-based observation about how the far right is trying to capitalize on the murder of Charlie Kirk, and he gets shit canned. It's not right. And to all of these bad faith, just goofballs on the far right, Megyn Kelly, Benny Johnson, I hate to even say their names, they're so ridiculous. This is just a business decision. Oh, they were just losing money, so it's a business decision. Give me a break. Give me a break. You heard Brendan Carr, the chairman of the FCC. And by the way, when is the last time the FCC, when is the last time that anybody remembers the FCC being in the news before Brendan Carr came along? Who the fuck does he think he is? Donald Trump's media henchman, Brendan Carr. Who does he think he is? All of a sudden comes on the scene and is telling companies what they can and can't do with their programming? Give me a break. Garry Kasparov is right. This is going to have to come from the people. Yes, absolutely. There are some up on Capitol Hill who will push back and push back hard and do it in a way that is worthy of our respect. No question about it. But there are too many who are willing to play ball. There are too many who just want to cut deals, who don't want to push back against the dear leader. And so it's going to be on all of us, folks. Forget about the weak-kneed corporate executives from corporate media. They're not coming to our rescue. They're not coming to save us. It's up to independent media. It's up to citizen journalists. It's up to the citizens. It's up to we the people to take a stand, to say we're not going to tolerate this. We're not going to take this lying down. We're not going to allow state media to take hold in the United States of America. As I was saying earlier, my dad comes from Cuba. If you ever want to get a sense of what state media looks like, look at what they broadcast in Cuba. It's a joke. When Fidel Castro died, as I was saying earlier, they stated that it was his physical disappearance. It wasn't his death, it was his physical disappearance. Do we want our nightly news to be done by the little lady on North Korean state television who sits there at the desk with the mountains behind her? Do we want Greg Gutfeld to be the only late night talk show host that Donald Trump's approving of on our TV screens every night? The guy's not even funny. He's a troll. He's a goblin. He looks like he sleeps under a bridge. Do you want late night with Greg Gutfeld, America? We got to get a grip. And the way we do that is by rising up and saying, I stand with Jimmy Kimmel. Go on your social media. Call your congressman. Write an editorial to your newspaper. Flood the phones over at the FCC. Does the FCC have a phone number? Look it up, call it, call the FCC, ask for Brendan Carr, and tell him we stand with Jimmy Kimmel. We stand for free speech. We stand for the First Amendment. We stand for free expression. Stand with Jimmy Kimmel. Stand with people like Stephen Colbert. And to the network executives who've let us down again, you know who you are. You know who you are. We should be flooding their phone lines too. We should be going, when it says the contact form and the email form, a lot of times those network folks, especially in the PR world, they see that stuff. They get that stuff. Don't think it's just going into thin air. If you have social media accounts, go on them and tell people that you stand with Jimmy. I stand with Jimmy. And I hope you do too. My thanks to Ali Velshi over at MSNBC, my friend. Always glad to have him on, and the great Garry Kasparov as well. Thanks everybody for watching. Tomorrow might be a bit of an abbreviated show as I'm going to be traveling back from Texas. I'm down here again. I'm down here in a red state. I'm going to preach the free speech to anybody who will listen. But I'm definitely going to do it in a red state. I'm definitely going to do it in Dallas, Texas. That's what I'm going to be doing tonight. But getting back might be a little tricky tomorrow, so I'll keep you posted on tomorrow. But thanks, everybody, for watching. Still reporting tonight in Dallas. I'm Jim Acosta. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching.